types of themes in a song, or any that really stood out to you personally, made you think about something that's going on, or something that you've experienced, or even something that someone you know have experienced?
Yes. Yeah. Um, while I agree politically with a lot of the topics that Rage Against the Machine promotes, in certain songs like Take the Power Back, there's some views on education that I didn't agree with. And for a while, that made the song harder to listen to. But you come around once you listen more for the music and less for the politics. But I think that the message that they deliver in any political music should be pushed forward and made into something that is more or less standard because music has become an important and accessible uh, medium for media. And so political music affects, or even informational music, will get people thinking, and I think that's a good thing.
I agree for the most part, but what happens if there's a song or music that maybe brings up topics that aren't as socially acceptable? Should they still be brought up, or is it more
Absolutely.
expand?
They absolutely should. I think that music should have, if someone has a viewpoint, it shouldn't be kept in the dark. That lessens to the representation of the groups that have those viewpoints or those values, or even just that general way of thinking. And even if those are immoral or impractical, or could even be decadent, I think that they should still be brought forward because it gets people to think about why they have those values or those thoughts in the first place. So if you have a piece of music that is dubbed immoral by modern society or just society in general, then I think that music should be listened to, or not at least not hidden or censored, because one, for the purpose of democracy, and two, because the people who listen to that can think about their own value system and their own way of thinking, and from that can create their own opinions, which I think is incredibly important so that we have actual thinking people in the world and aren't just drones to the media.
That's a really good insight. Yeah, because I mean the concept of kind of just following along can be a really dangerous thing. So
Complacency is always dangerous. Yeah.
exactly, and having like being able to have the critical thinking skills and actually be able to think about the deeper meanings behind things is a really important thing. Not just in music, you can do it with any media, art, uh, even like physical engine, like computation and creation. When you look at something or you hear something, what it makes there's also a difference between the artist's intention, right, or the musician's intention, and the listener or the viewer's take on it. And I don't think either one can be considered right or wrong. So if on this topic, if you were creating a project or like a song that maybe was like about something you cared about or a social piece, what would you want it to focus on?
I think exactly that. I've written lyrics in the past that I haven't put out yet, or haven't like written any music for, that tackled the idea of mindless living in society. And while I am pro education, absolutely, I don't think education is completely necessary for the type of critical thinking I'm talking about. And it goes beyond just critical thinking. You don't have to be to be able to critically think well at all to be able to think. Someone who is opinionated and decisive is infinitely more productive for the people around them than someone who is not. And so I've written songs tackling that, more on the angry side, like you were talking about earlier. talking about how these people who are ignorant to the information they perceive or approach their lives with confirmation bias get people killed, which is why I'm such a hater of science denial.
Yeah, that I agree personally on that because I think the concept of just denying something outright without understanding it is a very closed-minded thing to do. So,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so if you were creating a song, then you would want it, and you have made ones that focus on
Yeah,
that piece. That's
yeah,
really like interesting, and I'd love to hear them.
yeah. I can absolutely send you some of my stuff. The ones I'm talking about though are actually just lyrics in their demos still. So I'm working with them.
I believe in you. um, then so if you find the importance and the understanding of these like social, political, important messages through music, what do you personally believe or feel about? Like, how do you feel about artists who choose to remain apolitical or like non-political in their lyrics, or even more so that just purposely avoid it and don't talk about it at all?
I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I actually I approach that topic specifically more as it needs a healthy equilibrium because music in its form is a form of entertainment just like anything else. It's not the news. It's not a book. It's music. And so while music can be a powerful tool for um spreading thought invoking topics or spreading just thought invoking things and for getting political messages out there to the world, I don't think that music has any burden from needing to be political to be enjoyed or to be valid. And so I have no issues with those types of artists. I'm that type of artist for what I've put out right now. And like I said, I do have some politically charged lyrics that I've written that I haven't put in anything quite yet. But I think that that type of music can get the emotion out there and bring in all kinds of listeners. You'll see a lot of pop artists write lyrics that are intentionally vague so that they can apply to the public, to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have been guilty of changing some of my lyrics so that they're less specific to my life and so that they're listenable. Um, but I don't think there's anything wrong with non-political music. I think it's just music and it should be enjoyed.
That's a really like smart insight, I would say, because I and you can tell me if you agree or disagree, but I think music, I mean media in general, but on the topic of music, can be a double-edged sword when it comes to certain things because if you create too much awareness or too much attention to a certain topic, you may end up having the opposite pendulum effect where you're now just making fun of it or making light of it, and it's actually not as impactful or as important as it
Oh,
was.
do you mean like conditioning people
Basically,
to
yeah. So if and this is the psychological piece behind it,
or
right? Of
normalizing it?
yeah, exactly, normalization of if you see like a quote unquote bad thing enough times, then it's not so bad anymore. I think in a lot of cases you have to be careful with music because if something is listened to by so many people and so often, it could potentially become just some light thing like, oh, but it was just for a song, or oh, it was just because that's what they chose to do it on, and not actually focusing on the actual like message behind it.
Um, yeah.
Well, because a specific example I can think of is Bob Marley, because a lot of his stuff focuses on peace and like the and like anti-war things, essentially trying to like make everyone happy, everyone's peaceful all together. And for a long time, certain people listened to it so much that people were just like, oh, it's just because it's we're in peace, and they made light of the fact that what he was actually promoting was actually the concept of wanting and desiring peace, not just the fact that they had it. So I think like that's a very dangerous line to like tread, and yet I think it's an incredibly important line for us to tread.
I
You can
I
disagree with me.
I do, yeah, I do believe in conditioning is absolutely real and normalization is a problem, especially in news outlets. Um like the whole American theme with school shootings is an absolute problem with normalization over the media. But when it comes to music, I don't believe that people are listening to music so intently that the themes that are expressed in the music become normalized as a part of their value system. Um, but I do agree with you in a sense, especially with certain uh, derogatory words or slurs in more like rap music culture have been the public has been desensitized to because of their exposure to it through music. So it absolutely happens and it absolutely can be harmful or even a good thing. Like I believe the Beatles played a large role in the general cultural acceptance of PDA. Um so which personally I don't have much of a problem with. It's love is love. Just don't be weird about it. Uh
Smart words.
but and so you're right. I think it goes either way and it's a double-edged sword and it does happen. I just don't know if it's what should be focused on, if it's an issue worth really discussing.
That's fair. So, kind of moving to like a next piece more related to your world. So you're namely a lesser known and up and coming musician. Um
Namely,
namely,
I'm unknown. I'm like
you're
if you went
underground.
to a beach and you selected a grain of sand, I'm like the grain of sand that's inside of that grain of sand, unknown.
Okay. but if you look around, like even if you just look locally or even people kind of in your own community, what do you think about like these local or lesser known or underground or unknown artists making or addressing these social issues?
I was not paying attention. What did you just say?
So what do you think about local artists addressing these social issues when they don't have as much of an audience to actually reach? Do you think it's still something that's important to do for them, or do you think it's just trying to create an audience, or do you think like what's your opinion on that?
It depends. Anybody should be able to make whatever music they want without any constraints, limitations, or really anything affecting them. I think people should try to make good music. You know, put some work into it. Uh, but write about whatever you want. If you're a bigger artist, then I think there is some obligation, especially if music at the time is politically unsaturated. Then there is some obligation and great benefit um, that putting some political themes in your music can have on the public. I think that's completely valid. If you're a smaller artist and you want to talk about politics, do it. There's nothing wrong with being opinionated or being decisive. In fact, if you make music about a political view that you have, and then you go and promote that music, and someone says they hate your song, I think that's great for you to have a discussion with that person and challenge your viewpoint a little bit. You know, don't take your political views in as part of your value system. Keep them separate because your value system isn't determined based off of facts and um, logical decisions. Values are values.
Mhm.
Um, but your political viewpoints can affect the world around you, and do, especially if you vote, which you should vote.
So, I guess then, what do you think are the major limitations of music as a platform for these socio-political messages?
What are the major limitations
Mhm.
of the viewpoints?
No, of the platform. Like, why choose music over like an art
Uh,
piece, or
okay.
why choose an art piece over
What are
music?
the okay? Really, the most major limitation is that it's music. It's not a news outlet. It's not even an informative video or a podcast. So, since the music is always front and centered, and I've experienced this a lot through writing my own music, my own lyrics for the music I've already written, is that you write your lyrics for the music, or you can write your lyrics first and then write the music after. But it's always lyrics and not just an essay or a report or any of that. And so I think the most major limitations when it comes to putting politics out there in your music versus another form of media is one, the length that you can put out there. Two is the depth. You know, if you if you started reciting a scientific paper or even a socio-political paper as your lyrics, that song would suck. It doesn't matter how in beat it is.
Mhm.
All right, you can list as many numbers as you want. It doesn't matter. So one is the content. Well, one is the length. I'd say the second most limiting factor is the content, and the third most limiting factor is marketing. Overly politically charged music doesn't sell.
And that's just a sad fact almost. But yeah,
People don't. If you're
they're scared
looking
of it.
for, if you're looking to challenge your view on politics, let's say you falsely believe the inflation rate right now is 8%, like it was in 2022, instead of 2.4%, then you wouldn't you wouldn't go to a song to look for that. You'd either search it up on Google or maybe look at a YouTube video about the economy right now. Read a New York Times article, something.
But do you think
So
the music could be in like hand in hand with these other media? Like if you were to do a video that had these songs in it, do you think it would draw more attention to a topic?
I yeah, I think a funny comparison is music is the clickbait of media, because music gets the idea out there and gets the topic known, for people to then go look up and look into. That was the whole point behind Bradley's Rodney King song in that album, is that he just wanted people to go and get informed about why the riots happened.
Mhm.
And so he does discuss it to someone. He's like a lyric. It wasn't about Rodney King. So it was just about the effed up situation and the effed up police. Um, but for the most part, it's music. It's catchy. You want to listen to it. It's a form of media that everyone can see, and it's short and fast and to the point. I don't think it's meant to ever be truly informational.
So if it's not meant to be, which it isn't, but like if it was not meant to be purely informational, do you think you could get a similar sense of importance of these topics out of something that was purely instrumental with no lyrics?
That's more of a psychology question.
True, but
Um,
for you
I
personally,
personally write music to capture a feeling. So if I'm feeling a certain way, like the other day, I was feeling lethargic and depressed, but I couldn't sleep, and I wasn't exactly upset. And so I wrote a song to capture that feeling. And I think if you listen to the song, when you're feeling kind of similar, just generally negative, you can pick up on that feeling. But I don't think you could write a sentence and then write a song to speak that sentence with.
mhm.
So, no, I don't believe that's possible.
But would you agree that if you listen to something that was purely violin versus something that was purely electric guitar, they would have a different feeling.
Yes.
Right. So if you had
Ye-
a song like "Killing in the Name of" with just violins in the background and piano, would it have the same effect?
Instrumental or with the lyrics?
No, with the lyrics. If you had the lyrics but the instrumentals was like something like super soft and classical and like not offensive, to use a term. Because the "Killing
I
in the
think
Name
it'd be
of"
really weird for one because of the lyrics,
True, but
and because Zach De La Rocha's vocals are so angry. But um,
do you think it would still have the same impact though? Because "Killing in the Name of" is such a loud, aggressive song, right? There's a lot of
no,
grunge guitar in there.
yeah, it's very '90s and it's very
True.
angry. Um, no, I don't think it would have the same impact or even really the same message without it. So I think you're right. I think it goes hand in hand, and that's the problem. That's where the mathy nerds out there like me that can't write lyrics for shit. They they enjoy that they can make that instrumental music that captures the feeling just fine. Um, and then we cry when we write our lyrics because it's so hard.
But if American Idiot was sung as if it was a choir piece with like piano in the background,
That would be hilarious.
it would do almost, I think,
Don't wanna be an American idiot.
I think it would almost prove the point we talked about earlier, where it's making fun of a message at this point because you're like making fun of the whole concept by making it completely
Yeah,
opposite of what it
yeah.
should be.
In that case specifically, because it is punk rock, and punk rock itself is very liberally dominated.
Well, yeah, it came out in the '90s when there had a whole bunch of people that were like
Yeah.
mad. So
Um, yeah, I think it would be more of satire than anything.
well, kind of to start ending this a little bit.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
there any songs or albums that you think perfectly capture a really important social movement? Maybe ones that we haven't already said, like Rage or
Um,
Green Day.
absolutely. Uh, let me pull up my playlist real quick. There's a couple, but I think one specifically that I've been listening to a lot is um, of course, Coldplay's Parachutes is decently up there. Although that album is not politically centered. I've seen a decline in politically centered albums uh, over the past like 20 years, and so it's kind of hard to say albums that aren't like explicitly political, like Killing in the Name. Um, but they're absolutely out there. Like, hmm, there was a lot of political messages in Soundgarden's Super Unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of political ideology in Soundgarden's Down on the Upside. So, those two specifically, but if you're looking for something newer and something that's more on the cultural and human aspect of everyday life, not explicitly political, but capturing the atmosphere of the modern world and how that affects people, then I think Van Sire's Angel Youth, or specifically the song Metamodernity, uh, aptly named, really captures the political world to the public.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Those are some good suggestions. I'll definitely be mashing together some clips of songs when I make this podcast thing. Because I was definitely going to use Killing in the Name of, An American Idiot, and like Do the Evolution, Idiot Tech, all these songs that are kind of
use some
socio-political.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I love the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You know they'll be in there. We love them.
Red Hot Chili
So
Peppers is great for that, and Sublime as well.
yeah, I also had like Radiohead and like System of a Down.
System. Corn.
So
Corn is very politically provocative.
well, I guess do you have any final thoughts on any of this, like on this topic in general?
Um, don't be weak egoed. You know, if you have a viewpoint, talk about it, and if it's wrong, then accept it's wrong. Get angry and write a song about how wrong you are and how much you hate being wrong.
Cool. And then if you want, you can play a short clip of something, or actually play now if you want. If you have anything you want to share, or you can just
Oh, sure.
I'll
Here,
link out your
I'll
band.
I'll screen share my what I've been doing recently, or what I just put out there for people to see. Um, just give me a moment. One moment, please.
You're okay.
So this is not up on the band page yet. Just just up on my personal page where I post a bunch of different demos there. So I can send them to people and have them listen and give me their feedback. But it just copied the name. Copy link. Hello. There we go. And so you can show it, or I can just screen share it to you.
I can show it if you want. Just to the video.
You want me to screen share it?
No, I have it playing, so like a short
Okay.
clip it. I know you can't hear it, but it's playing for my recording. So
That song is really in the moment because I made the entire song in about an hour and a half.
as one does. So
I was just feeling a certain way, and I wanted to capture the feeling before it was gone.
that's totally acceptable. As a I do like art, drawing, and whatnot, and I definitely will just draw random things just because I feel like it in the moment. And then afterwards, I'm like, I don't know why I drew that, and I don't know what it actually means, but it exists now, so we win,
Yeah.
I guess. Um, so has kind of on to the last question, but as the actual last question, has there ever been a time where like a song's message really resonated with something that you've like believed in? Is there like one song that you could pull out and say, I 100% agree with it?
Yes. Um, if you look at there's this more underground, not fully underground. If you want a fantastic underground band other than mine, of course, then look at Moon Rules Apply. They make some great music. Office Papers is very good. Very politically provocative, like you were talking about. It's actually not my favorite song from them though. But absolutely, if you look at this band called Return to Dust, they have a fantastic political song that I've just been Belly Up by Return to Dust. I've just been listening to it nonstop. It is really, really well made, and it captures the feeling of what they're trying to say incredibly well.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciated
Yeah.
it. Um, and I will definitely link out your band when I finally put this project together. So I appreciate you taking the time
Thank
to
you.
talk to me about this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Goodbye, Evelyn.
Goodbye.